Alright, let's just keep going here. I just want to finish the astrodoodle. Okay. I don't know if anyone's going to see this or if anyone's going to show up. I just wanted to get it recorded, that's all. Haven't really had much chance or time to get anything out there for you recently. I'm sorry. It's actually been a very, very important time astrologically, and I just haven't, I feel like I'm not serving you properly, but what can you do? Okay, so we're in June, right? We're in the Gemini season. We're just over here at the full moon. Okay, it just happened. It's right now the sun in Gemini, moon in Sagittarius. 2 weeks later, we're going to have the Gemini new moon over here. And then a few days later, sun is moving into Cancer for Cancer season. There's two big things happening in the middle of the month. One is that Saturn is going retrograde in Pisces. So that's going to be a long-term retrograde. 2, 3, how many months? 3, 4, 5. Anyway, it's kind of building up into a massive wall of retrogrades coming later in this year, where things are going to get very, I would say, very difficult for humanity, especially the folks at the very, very top of the pyramid of power. If you see over here, Pluto has been retrograde for some time at the 0-degree mark of Aquarius, but it's actually flipping technically into Capricorn 29 degrees over here around the 11th. And so that's going to go on for months. And when we hit this point here, from this point onwards for the next few months, there's going to be a tremendous surge of pressure in terms of desperation from the global elites as they do everything they can to hold on to as much power, money and control as possible. Because at the same time that they're grasping for all the money and power and control that they can, the reason they're grasping is because they're losing it. They realize they're losing it because more and more people across planet Earth are starting to wake up to the obscene, disgusting, evil, fraudulent practices from the unhealthy expression of Pluto in Capricorn up here, which represents the global elites of the global elites at the very, very top. So you want to call it politicians, Wall Street bankers, whatever you want to call it. But there's a group of people. It's a very, very small number of people. And they essentially believe that they own and control the world, and that's their day job. And everyone else has to just go along with whatever they dictate. And it's not working. It's not working in the way that they want it to work. And so they're getting desperate, and they are starting to put the squeeze on humanity. It's coming from multiple different angles. Let me show you with my map. You know I love my maps. So over here in Western Europe, you've got the big squeeze coming from the World Economic Forum kind of crowd. You know, the globalists, very, very old, regal populations over here that are used to having empires that grow, blossom, and then die over and over and over again over thousands of years. And then you have the Chinese empire here, which is seeking to be the #1 empire on planet Earth. Then you have the American empire over here. And everyone else has been essentially forced to comply with these three core entities. We call these like Western or developed, or Western or developed, Western or developed, 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 developed. And then they call all of this and all of this, and a lot of this is undeveloped. It's very strange. It's just people living their lives. There's a lot of tragedy happening right now, which is, of course, highly predictable. We have, let me just show you about this, how the sacred astrology works. So, this is for today. You can see this big fat T-square here, okay? For the last few weeks, we've been dealing with Mars opposite Pluto, and as predicted, we had massive expansions in global violence. Okay, some people call it World War III is coming alive for real, but it's everywhere, and you even see it in the streets. People just go ballistic. They choose violence as their first option to solve a problem. I watched a video the other day. It was on a very disturbing link, and it showed this fellow over in where was it? It was over here in India, and he got pissed off with his girlfriend. His girlfriend told him, like, listen, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to break up with you. And he was in public at a train station with lots of people hanging around, and he pulled out a dagger and he stabbed her 22 times in front of all these people, and nobody did anything. They just sort of watched, took videos and selfies and everything, and the girl was just completely obliterated. And then the guy ran away, and eventually apparently they caught him, but he admitted, like, yeah, I did that, I couldn't help myself, I got angry, she tried to dump me. And anyway, so that's just one tiny example. The big violent things, of course, going on are over here right now, but there's plenty of violence over here and here and here and here, and it's always brewing over here, and it's brewing over here, okay? So the thing is, one of the stories that's coming alive is this realization that there's billions of people across Earth who are realizing, like, we don't want to play this game anymore the way it's been played for the last 120 years, where the United States gets to call all the shots using the American dollar as a weapon. They use the petrodollar as a weapon, and it's worked extremely well up to the point where it is now, where it's not working so well, because people are starting to realize, oh my God, the dollar is more than just a dollar. It's actually a weapon that the United States uses to force its agenda on the rest of the world. Don't get me wrong, I'm American and I love America, but there's other ways to run a nation, to run a country. You don't have to be a bully and a thug. Just because you can print infinite amounts of money and chop and change interest rates anytime you want doesn't mean you have to do that purely for your own benefit. But that's what they do. Okay? The Federal Reserve, the United States Treasury, and the Washington administration, they're all working in collusion to feed themselves at the deficit of the rest of the planet. We are in the Gemini Sagittarius vibe right now, so that's very significant for Mr. Trump, and he is growing stronger than ever, whether you like him or not. That's what's happening, and the more he gets attacked, the stronger he gets. There's a huge convention that just went on over here in China, where I think it was about 6 or 8 or 12 people, mostly I think from America, were going to China, even though there's a lot of, let's say, war talk between China and America right now. These business banker types like Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan and Elon Musk from Tesla, and the Steve Cook from Apple, all these really big, brands are basically trying to, the way I see it, is trying to appease China, trying to figure out how. Hi, hello Delicia, hi Diana. I'm just doing a random video because I had to get this stuff out of me, because otherwise I get congested. Anyway, they're having a convention over here, just had it. And the way I see it is that these big money people like Elon Musk and Jamie Dimon and Steve Cook, they have enjoyed immense privilege of being able to access the Chinese slave labor camps in order to grow their businesses. And they still want to do that. The problem is that a lot of people across the west of the world are starting to feel like, wait a minute, we don't really want to associate with China so much the way we did in the past. And so they're pulling out of China, banks, corporations, and everything. And it's kind of creating a problem for the big guys that I just told you about, because they're used to making all their money here as Americans by exploiting the Chinese slave labor camps through the Chinese Communist Party. It's a very, very sick marriage, and it works for the benefit of the consumer who gets lots of cheap Chinese stuff. Some of it's really good, some of it's not so good. And it also benefits the super ultra elites at the very, very top, who benefit directly from the slave camp. And just like all owners and users of slave camps, they don't want to give it up, because that's how they make all their money. If they actually had to pay full wages for goods and services, as if all the stuff was being done in America or Western Europe, your smartphone would be $3,000 or $4,000. Your electric drill would be $180, $280. Your your Tesla car would be, $70, $80, $90,000, and so on and so on. So there's benefits to having a slave camp do all your dirty work for you. But that whole model is starting to fall apart, and it's falling apart so quickly that the American elites I was telling you about, they're panicking. They're desperate. Now, that's just one storyline. The reality is China is desperate inside itself. Their whole freaking economy is crumbling from the inside. And the more desperate they get, the more belligerent they get on the outside. This is where they're getting very vicious. It's just around here. They've got their Belt and Road and everything. But the real viciousness is happening around here. And I don't think anybody knows exactly what's going to happen, but as I predicted some time ago, oh, where was it? I guess that was the last one. Anyway, 20th of May. Okay, so the point that I was trying to get to is like how patterns linger in sacred geometry. So I'm going to go back here. Like, here's today's chart, all right? Two big, fat, super high-stress T-squares. Gemini, Sagittarius with Pisces in the middle. Venus, Pluto, with Jupiter in the middle over here. Basically Leo / Cancer, opposite Aquarius / Capricorn, hard squared with mostly Jupiter, but you could also add a bit of Mercury and Uranus. So this, if you see this big fat T-square here, this has been going on for months, building up. Well, weeks, many weeks, okay? And back when I first started marking this one, I'll show you, okay? See this T-square? 21st of May. See this big fat T-square? 28th of May. See this big fat T-square? 3rd of June. All right? So it's a very strong lingering energy, and I predicted that we would see a build-up in global violence, and the subject of war would start to be impossible to ignore. And that's basically what's happening now. Even it's almost like even the mainstream media is using the language of World War III. All right, there are a couple of things that popped up. There's the Digital Restrict Act. That's happening over in Europe, and they're going to try and force it on America. And basically what it is, it's all about surveillance and censorship that these elites want to impose all over Europe through through social media. So, you know, we're looking at communism, Marxist agendas here. Basically Europe turning into a communist population. It's really disturbing. The other thing we had is the debt ceiling thing, of course, which is all about what I was talking about here, way back here, even before here with the Scorpio eclipse. Did I mark it? Yeah, look at that one. Okay, so way back here we were talking about the global financial crisis, and it's culminating right now in terms of interest rates, inflation, and the American debt ceiling deal, which was basically nothing. And what it's doing, it's just perpetuating the same fraudulent system as before, and there's no real solution. So people in America have started to realize, oh my God, there really is such a thing called a uniparty, where it doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. It's very disturbing. Anyway, they're trying to make it look like there's something sweet about the deal, and there are a couple of sweet things in it, but it's kind of a fake fix. What it does to me is illustrates that there is a genuine, real-life, deep state inside America which does not answer to the voters. It's more of a selection process than an election process. There are still some hardcore conservatives in Congress, like the Freedom Caucus, who refused to sign off on the deal for the debt ceiling. But the debt ceiling passed anyway because so many people just wanted to get it over with and get on with it. And all the Democrats, of course, signed on with it. So it makes McCarthy look like he's a bit of a hero, but in fact he's just playing the uniparty game. It's very, very disturbing. We're just creating more and more and more debt and more and more and more poverty for generations to come. Sorry about all the doom and gloom. The other thing, of course, as I mentioned over here with Saturn in Pisces, for the next 2 years, you're going to see a long, slow, uncontrolled implosion, like demolition video of China from the inside out. It's impossible to stop because they have built their economy based on like an American capitalist thing on steroids, but then you add all the corruption, and the corruption goes all the way through the Communist Party all the way to the very top. That's how business is done there. Everything is done through bribery, blackmail, theft, corruption, fraud, deception, lies. That's their business model. And you can see it in all their real estate. You can see it in their military, their defense systems. All of their defense systems are built off stolen intellectual property from here and here. Then they take that stolen intellectual property, and the leaders of the CCP tell the country, okay, you need to start making weapons for war because we're going to go to war soon. And so they're making all these fighter jets and aircraft carriers and, attack boats and, missiles and all sorts of weapons and stuff. And it's all based on Western technology, and then they put the Chinese label on the top of it. And then they use our weapons against us. So it's, we kind of know what they're doing, but they don't have all the best stuff. So, but because of how they are and who they are and the way they are, the more and more that a thug gets angry and frustrated about how horrible their life really is on the inside, the more violent they become on the outside. Over here, this is basically a thug nation run by thugs in suits who use violence as a way to take care of business. So it's falling apart from the inside. And so, like, I was watching reports and information on how their aircraft carriers are like splintering. They're actually cracking in the middle. And how their jets are based on these 1950s, 1960s jets from Russia with pepped up motors and stuff, but it's not working very well. So it looks like they have a very powerful military, and they have these spectacular displays of infantry with old rifles and stuff. So it looks very intimidating. And sure, it's very, very dangerous. It's very, very threatening. But, how would they cope in a full-on assault? Because the moment they breach, let's say, the war barrier, it will create a response. And America is pretty stretched out because of all this the ridiculous stuff we're doing over here in Ukraine. And we're depleting our stocks and ammo and weapons over here. The older stuff. We've still got an incredible military, an extremely advanced military in so many ways, but we're lacking a lot of the just nuts and bolts of warfare. Do we have enough guns? Do we have enough bullets? Do we have enough rockets, enough missiles, enough jets, enough tanks, and all the real basic stuff to conduct a really ugly, dirty war? And we're a little bit deficient. Okay? They use an expression over there in China, tofu. Like all their big apartment buildings, they're tofu buildings. They fall apart very, very quickly because they're made with fraudulent materials and terrible, terrible construction. It looks pretty until it all falls apart. They're riddled with debt. The other thing that's kind of, it's not surprising, but a lot of them, in North America and Canada and Alaska and Western Europe, is waking up to the realization that there are Chinese spy operations, and they've been here for a long time, that suck up all the intellectual property that they need over here to do their knockoffs, their knockoff military. My personal feeling is that the reason it's been ignored or not discussed too much for so long is because the evil people who are colluding with the Chinese spies get paid. So those people are traitors to the United States, and they would rather just take some money, some fast, quick money, and just hand over like a little, a little, what do they call it? Oh, pretend this is a thumb drive. Here, I'm an American science, space technician guy. And what, you were going to give me $1 million for this USB stick full of intellectual property? Sure. Here, have it. So that's what's happening. Another thing, I finally saw it. I mean, after years, I wrote my book years and years ago about January 2020 and global restructuring. So it's actually happening right now. All the tectonic plates of human populations and behavior are shifting and grinding around. It's basically fracturing away from the United States and creating these new BRICS and so on, BRICS nations, because they've started to realize, they finally woke up to the realization that the United States dollar is more than just a currency. It's actually a weapon. And the United States dollar has been weaponized, especially for the last 40 years, in order to manipulate and control any country or population that refuses to comply with the American hegemony of basically keeping the oil flowing according to the way American big oil companies want it to flow. That's why they call it the petrodollar. And because America is the, let's say, world reserve currency, it's basically like the currency that everybody uses for trading. And all these folks over here are sick of it because it's all falling apart. And so there's this massive, if you can imagine tectonic plates, they're all splintering from the United States. And they're going to try and create an alternative. It's going to be very, very tricky. Very, very tricky. The United States, in order to continue to keep going, it has to issue more debt, more U.S. treasuries. And people are scared to buy those treasuries now because they're scared that the dollar is going to become so weak. Why would we bother? Because we're going to buy stuff that's going to become worthless. So the only way America can keep selling debts and treasuries is to raise interest rates more and more and more and more to seduce people out here to buying the U.S. Treasury debt to keep America going, so that Janet Yellen and Jerome Powell and Uncle Joe Biden can keep this thing going over here in their perverse agenda. Hello, Ivona. But anyway, everyone else is figuring out that we don't want to play this game anymore. So they're trying to figure out an alternative system. And they're making some headway. There's so many other things I should talk about, like over here in Ukraine, the things going on in Africa. I'll just mention one last thing. I found this early this morning, and Love Triber reminded me this evening. It's a little bit too late, too little, whatever it is, too little, too late for TarotLumination. But YouTube is now reversing its censorship policy regarding the topic of the United States elections in 2020 that were considered rigged or fraudulent or stolen. And I think the reason that they're having to reverse their censorship is because it's becoming very, very obvious and proven to be true that the election was rigged and it was stolen. So it's very, very hard to hide those hard facts. Now, I've noticed that YouTube is still sending blue alerts everywhere regarding climate change. And they basically say climate change and global warming is a phenomenon that is happening right now, mostly because of human beings burning all these fossil fuels. Okay, so that's a story, whether you believe it or not. There's probably some truth to it, but the reality is we need lots more carbon dioxide here so that we can grow more plants and have a healthier, agrarian world, and richer forests. They need oxygen, but they also need a lot of CO2 for plants to live. They live off CO2. That's like food for them. So the whole climate cult agenda is very bizarre and strange and nonsensical to me. Hello, Joy Love. So they are still putting alerts on YouTube. Like anybody talking about climate change, please be aware, as far as YouTube is concerned, climate change and global warming is made by human beings. You need to understand that is the truth. I don't believe it. That's my personal view. My personal view is that climate change is continuous. It's always warming, it's always cooling, it's always warming, it's always cooling. It's just that the patterns go over thousands and thousands and thousands of years. You get ice ages, you get hot phases. And right now, people over here, they're on their phones and like, oh my God, global temperature went up by 0.01 degrees last year. And then the year before, and so on and so on. And it sends this massive panic. But what's happening is, I believe that the climate cult people are using their story as a belief system to get money out of people by creating a new sort of world structure that will allow the elites to basically remodel everything so they can suck more money out of your wallet, out of your life, effectively creating poverty and redirecting the wealth that you might have had up to them. Hello, Necessary Truths. I don't really want to say much more. I just needed to get this out of my system here. Let me go over here. Hi, I'm speaking from the TarotLumination space station. I had to get out for a little while, and it's okay up here. It's kind of fun, in fact. So, thanks for visiting. I'm glad you got the links. I'm hoping to be here tomorrow evening, Sunday evening, and I am available for doing the live mini readings. We have to do it by donation. I'll show you. We've done this many times before, but I have to keep reminding people. So you go over here to TarotLumination.com and you click the donate button from the donate page, and from there you can swipe your debit credit card on and get a little mini reading. Of course, you could also book personal readings if you really need to as well. So I'm just reminding you. So hopefully we'll be there tomorrow evening, 5 p.m. Pacific time. Okay? So that's where we are now. Thank you for listening. I feel like I've really become very detached for multiple different reasons. I was watching some of my financial videos because for me it's very, very comforting. And even though the news is often very, very bad and very disturbing, the reason I'm okay with it is because it's stuff that I've been predicting for years without any hard proof or any hard evidence. But now all the proof and evidence is right out there. So I feel vindicated. And I like to feel vindicated on a daily, regular basis, if possible. So that's why I focus on several of these sources that I believe, in my opinion, are very trustworthy because they deal with what I consider to be truth. And inevitably, the truth does come out. And it shows in the way they present their materials. I could do a whole other video about that stuff, but I'm going to leave it for now. I miss hanging out with you guys. I wish there was more that I could do. And I'm really glad that YouTube is dropping its censorship on the January 6th and the 2020 elections, stories about fraud and stolen elections, because it's very hard for them to stop the truth when it's become so fully exposed now. Anyway, thank you very much. I'm just going to sign off right now. Okay? Take care, everybody. Actually, what I have to do is I'm just going to, because I don't want you to miss the end of the video, actually, because there's such a weird delay with the way things close. I am going to go over here. Okay? I'm going to wind it out from here.